Hey everybody, this is Joe. Thank you for watching my Giga-Texas construction update video. For today's video, let's talk a little more about this new facility being built on the north end of Giga-Texas. Construction is going rapidly. They're building from the south to the north, and there's some new information that I'd like to pass on about the grid pattern for this structure and some of its dimensions. Now, if you recall a few videos ago, I talked about the permits for this site. There was 3 buildings, but clearly there is one. I've also been able to see some indications on the footings themselves with markings that gives us an idea of the grid pattern for this structure, and that will give us a great indication of its overall size. Back on the 16th of April, I was able to get this high-resolution shot of those markings. You can clearly see B14, and this gives me an idea of exactly which direction the grid pattern is labeled, from the east to the west and the north to the south. Putting all of this together, this is what the grid layout looks like for this new structure. 26 grid lines to the north and 9 from the west to the east. And this is very similar to the grid layout that we saw at Giga-Texas, and we've used to a lot of great extent being able to identify where everything is located. With this particular grid map, this gives us the chance to figure out the overall size, and then we'll do a comparison to what the permits originally said. Now, the distance between each of the columns is approximately 46 feet or about 14 meters. That's very similar, if not identical, to what we see with the main factory at Giga-Texas. That means that each square is about 2,116 square feet or about 196 square meters. And with this, we can get the overall length and width of this structure, which comes into about 370 feet wide or about 112 meters wide and about 1,155 feet long or about 350 meters long. That gives us a floor area of 427,350 square feet or just about 39,700 square meters. Now, as mentioned, the assembly is going from the south to the north, and the process of erecting the steel is going quite rapidly. And so far, it's looking like it's a single-story building. The west perimeter grade beam is actually taller than the east perimeter grade beam, which would be the base of the walls along those sides of the building. This may be for a grade change so that they can manage the water runoff, but they are also using different size columns for those beams. So that's something I'll be continuing to monitor as the building continues to take shape. And of course, that is going quickly, as I had mentioned before. This is what it looked like on the 30th of April, just 2 weeks after the footings and the perimeter grade beam was starting to be put in. And the rate that they're going, I would estimate within a month, they will have most of the steel structure assembled. Now, of course, it wouldn't be Giga-Texas if they weren't making significant changes live on the fly to the site plan documents, and that's exactly what's happening on the north end as well. Originally, 3 facilities, 2 of them the same size of about 175,000 square feet each. A smaller one with about 30,000 square feet of floor space. And then if you have the total floor area, it's about 380,000 square feet or about 115,150 square meters in overall facility size for the 3 buildings. So for this diagram, I took the original site plan and I've overlaid the current structure as it's being built. This gives you an idea of its location and also the overall size and arrangement is in comparison to what the original site plan document looked like. So compared to the original 3 building combined square footage, this building is about 13% larger overall, assuming also it's just going to be a single story. This leaves a lot more of the graded area without construction, and I just wonder if we're going to see some additional work, possibly a reconfiguration from the original design to the current one to accommodate Cortex 2.0. That may be a change that happened after the site planning documents were published. So that is going to be something I'm going to be watching as this develops. Also, I think it's illustrative to compare this new structure to the south end extension of Giga-Texas, since we know that Cortex 1 is there. And as you can tell, they're very similar in size. The new structure is about 93% of the size of that south extension. And we know that Elon's talked about the south as Cortex 1. And from what I'm hearing on the site, the new one's going to be Cortex 2. So the overall size and footage of the structures seems to match up. So overall, that's a quick look at this new structure, its size and configuration changes in comparison to what we saw with the south extension. I'm still looking for additional information, permits, and other documentation to be able to give us more insight into what is going on. But for right now, this is what this construction site is looking like, and more for us to keep watching as time goes on. So I hope that you found this overview and discussion helpful.
If you would like to support my efforts, please consider using these links, which will be in the video description. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons on my YouTube video, as this helps as well. Thank you.
My drones are ready and raring to go. Let's go flying over Giga-Texas. Well, good morning from the far northeast of Giga-Texas today. I thought I would start up here with some really nice lighting looking back across the site, back towards the main factory. And in the foreground here, we see that earthwork that is still underway. Some of that dirt's being used for that construction site. Also, here's the rental equipment lot and also where they perform some maintenance. And as I pull away, this gives you kind of a nice overall view of where this is located in relation to the factory. Also, this field is what I call Lone Tree Field. And through this area, at some point in the near future, we're going to see the new Harold Green Road being constructed. Now, we also see these hills and ponds that we just passed over. That's the old sand and gravel mine, and it separates that Lone Tree Field to this field here, where a lot of materials are being stored temporarily. And we also see this section here with some of the concrete floor and some additional materials being stored. Now, as I fly back towards that construction site with the dirt, I wanted to stop here and just show you some of the materials closer in. You can see that they're red and white painted items that are typically what we see in the production lines in the factory. Now, the fact that they're way up here makes me think that this is more of a long-term storage until they need it rather than something they're going to be using in the near future. This is that dirt pile that we've been seeing slowly going down as they've been using this for that large construction site in the upper right-hand side of the screen. I also see some of the concrete that is still here for recycling near where the trees are. And just what the rest of this section looks like. Almost all of the materials that were stored here have been moved away over the last several months, and all we have left is these concrete vaults at the bottom right with some of the steel pipe items. Speaking of which, more of the steel corrugated pipes are still being stored here next to the cell test lab. It does look like there's some groundwork being done near that facility. You can also see that dump truck pulling away with some of the dirt in its bed. As we get closer into the wade pit, the bottom right, and of course the crash test facility, so it just gives you a quick view of what is going on here on the east side of the battery cathode plant. And as I bring the drone down a little lower, we'll fly over the crash test facility. You can tell that there's many vehicles on the right-hand side of the screen there, that black fence, that have undergone testing. You can see all of the testing marks along that is useful for when they do photographing of the actual crash testing. So it's kind of neat to see that this is just an almost continuous operation as they continue to test out all of the vehicles. Here's a nice look across the east side, and we'll fly up over this field kitchen at the bottom left of the screen, and of course the main factory across the east warehouse on wheels. And as I continue to pivot around back to the east side of the battery cathode plant, and a nice view here of that crash testing facility as well. And in the middle is the die shop. And then we have that new structure that is under construction, and it is really rapidly being assembled. So I'm going to go ahead and bring the drone up, fly over the die shop, and we'll take a tour around this new facility. A few of the things that I notice as they continue to work from the south to the north, they are adding more of the roof decking on, again from the south to the north. Many more of those are pre-positioned on the roof beams, waiting for them to be installed. We see some more of the roof beams being installed with the crane, and I'll give you a close view of that momentarily. And then a lot more of the steel items here on the ground near where the footings are, where they will be assembled. More of the items are being brought in by trucks today. You can see some of that is that decking and for the roof, and maybe mezzanine floors. We'll have to see if that actually happens. There's a few of the rebar cages left over for the footings, and those will be used here on the north end. As you can tell, there are still several sections needing that footing excavation on top of those circular depressions where the piles are, and that just shows how much more work here on this side that they need to do for those footings. The perimeter grade beam is continuing, and it is forming the north wall of this structure. This is also a great view to tell the perimeter grade beam on the right is much taller than it is on the left, and the columns that are being installed are shorter to compensate for this design preference. The breaks here in between the perimeter grade beam are mostly for the access for construction, and they will be filled in later on. This allows the cranes to be able to get in and maneuver much more easily than if the perimeter grade beams had been finished. More decking materials on the right have been delivered, and as we come in lower, I'll give you some good views here of the steel that is being laid out here, what the footings look like, and also just to kind of go back to what we talked about in the intro with the grid pattern, how that would work out with all of these various footings. And you can actually see some of the markings on the footings to corroborate that grid pattern. I also gave you a short view here underneath that structure of what it is looking like. And as I continue to maneuver over the roof and the roofing decking materials, this is a good view of more of the steel workers at work bringing in the beams and positioning them for installation. As far as the ground slab is concerned, that will be added later, and once all the superstructure is completed. And I'll try to give you views of that as much as I can, but it looks like the roof is going to be in place pretty quickly, so we may not be able to get some detailed views of that slab work once that begins. But as I pull away, a nice overall shot of that structure, and hopefully this, with what we talked about in the intro, was helpful. Now I'm going to move over towards the Megapack site. Of course, in between that structure and the Megapack site, all of this earthwork is continuing. Most of the trailers at the bottom of the screen are also temporary, so we could see this entire area being developed for construction. As I bring the drone up a little bit higher, I'll give you this view across the Megapack 2 and that construction site. Of course, also over the electrical switchyard, which itself is going to see construction as they double it in size into this dirt area you see kind of in the middle of the screen. And then as I continue to maneuver the drone over the power lines, I'll look back towards the east across this entire site, and a really nice view of how this is starting to take shape. Also, if you pay attention to the bottom of the screen, and I'll kind of maneuver the drone around these power lines, you can tell that that new roadway has a kind of a bridge over that middle section, most likely over some piping, and this is allowing the concrete trucks to have access to the temporary or the semi-permanent concrete batch plant. And this is important because we'll see in just a bit on the video, the roadway that used to come up through this area is no longer usable. So this is how they're going to be bringing these concrete trucks over here to get the newly manufactured concrete. This shows you a lot of the materials, and in those kind of round trailers nearby the batch plant, those are called pigs, and they have the cement that is used as part of that mix to make the concrete. So as we come back over towards this site, again, this is where the switchyard is going to be doubled in size. You can also tell with all of this work here that roadway is no longer accessible. It looks like they are installing some kind of, I don't know, black tubing through this excavation, at least for right now. And with the workers, this gives you an idea of the scale. So now that they have that new roadway, they can begin more construction here and removing these lower level power lines that are kind of on these islands that they left while they were doing some of the earthwork. So I'm going to fly over now towards the Megapack site, and we can see that there's additional earthwork just to the east of the Megapack site. And as we get closer in, We can tell that there's a lot of crews at work putting in all the cabling now to do the connections between the Megapacks and the transformers. You see some of the spools on the bottom left-hand side of the screen. And as I maneuver the drone around here, you can tell that they have some of the cabinets for the transformers open here. And as we continue to fly along the site, you can tell a lot of the orange wiring is being installed here between these sets of Megapacks and the transformers. And to the kind of center top of the screen, you can see what that looks like when it's almost completed. So that's a great sign of all of the work that is going on here on the north end. I'm going to fly around the east side and we'll take a look at the activity. One of the things that you'll notice is the parking lot is not nearly as full as it normally is. That's because it's a Friday, so it's not a production day. Also, those trailers are for Aries, which is a construction company. I think they're related to that north construction site, and they have their new operations in that north part of that parking lot. This is the East Warehouse on Wheels that we are flying over right now. In addition to that, some of the materials, workshops, containers, and equipment that is stored on this far east side. And as I continue to maneuver around, what I wanted to show you here within these kind of temporary structures with the roofs and the kind of that not quite a Quonset hut, we can see that there is work underway manufacturing more of those gray pipes. Now we saw some of these being lifted into the temporary platform on the southwest side of the building near the extension, and this is where that work is underway to manufacture these pipes. And I'm not sure exactly what these are for, but they look a lot like some coolant pipes that we have seen being installed in that south extension previously. This is also a close-in, high-resolution shot of the recycling yard. It looks like there's a lot of tires being recycled here today in the bottom right-hand side of the screen. So I'm going to fly around a little bit more, get closer to the parking garage and show you some of the activity on this part of the site, especially looking over this pond where we see on the left-hand side of the screen where the W&W Glass Company has the last parts of their workshops as the glass installation is coming to an end. As I bring the drone down a little lower, this is more of the parts, steel pipes and steel beams that are being stored here temporarily until their time is needed. We also see some of those gray pipes at the bottom of the screen that are being manufactured over on that east side. So this looks like it's just staging that until it's needed. As I zoom in and get closer to the superchargers, we can see that those two tents are still in place, have not been able to capture any activity going into those tents so we can get any additional information, but you can tell that they are tied next to those V4 posts for the superchargers, which differentiates themselves from the other superchargers nearby. More of the work on that temporary platform, and again a view into this east side secondary entrance where we can see plywood and some additional work just inside that entranceway. So I'm going to keep the zoom in. We'll fly up to the north along the east side. We see some work along the wall and also just the number of castings and casting rack mounts all throughout this area. They definitely seem to be increasing in number, and also it's helping a lot with the inventory and being able to manage the number of castings. In this section, we see what I think is Model Ys on the left, and here in the middle, where I zoom in a little, is what I believe is rear castings for the Cybercabs. And on the right-hand side of the screen coming into view, these are also different. I don't think that these are Cybertrucks. They're a little bit too small, similar in design, but I think it's the front castings for the Cybercabs. So let me know what you think in the video description, and I'll give you some closer views here in a moment. We can also see that the melt plant is busy with some scrap aluminum, some from castings, some from wheels, and also the furnace loading system is operational. And I'm going to reposition over the power lines, and we'll get a closer look of that operation here momentarily. But at first, I wanted to show you just continued castings here on the north side in this parking lot that's been kind of marked up for all of the castings. And of course, many of these rack mounts really helping with that inventory and logistics movement of the castings around the factory. And I know that that has been an item that they've wanted to get a better handle on. Looks like with this effort here, they are definitely doing so. Of course, there requires a lot of space for these castings and the rack mount, so we see much more of that next to the north and northeast side of the factory. I'm going to turn back towards the north side because I did notice something interesting. There's a cover on top of this set of casting racks, and it looks like it's sort of an entranceway, so not sure exactly why they chose to do that, but that is a new development. And of course, here at the bottom of the screen is a lot of Cybertruck front castings in the rack mounts. And these are, if you look at them here real quick, it'll give you a kind of a reference to compare the ones that are on the ground, which I think are for the Cybercabs. But since I'm at a lower altitude and I'm able to take advantage of the lighting, I'm going to give you a nice view into the melt plant and some of the items on the ground that we've seen previously. But here is where they are aligning up aluminum that's going to be recycled, and they're going to use that furnace that's just inside the factory here. And this is a nice view with lighting of what is being recycled. And then you can see that gray kind of bin, and it's loaded up with materials, and that will be moved into and put into the furnace for melting that down so they can recycle that aluminum. And as I turn back towards the castings, here is that closer view of those castings on the ground level and all the castings in these rack mounts. And they all appear to be RTTX, which possibly is Robotaxi Texas marked. And now that we're seeing two different kinds, I think that's another great sign for the work that's going on for the Robotaxi production line setup and testing that's going on inside the factory. There's also a nice view of the baghouse filtration plant and how it looks in the vertical, and also all those kind of shiny pipes along that midsection, and also the connections into the building. And I think even though there is some plastic showing that there's additional assembly work underway, this is getting very close to being operational. And once it is, it will help with the kind of the environment and atmosphere within the casting machine structure, as they've added a lot more materials. They've added more of the giga presses and the furnaces, so it makes it kind of hot, and they have some particulates in the air. They need to filter that out, so that's what that plant is for. Wanted to see what was going on here with the cleaned section of the roof. Not much change since we last saw them working on this. So I'll bring the drone back down, and we'll reposition here to look at the north part of the paint shop, where we see some of those racks that are used for painting of the bumpers on the left-hand side of the screen, a few more at the bottom of the screen. And they all look like they're for the new Model Y, at least for right now. Of course, this is the 4680 cell portion of the factory. These two tall platforms, and you can see how they've added some plastic around those openings for probably trying to keep dust and the wind out as much as they can. While we're also on the north end, I wanted to show you the work that is continuing here along the berm. There are some electrical conduit being added, but they're also adding in some large black pipe. This is extending the entire length of the berm and will eventually be connecting to the smaller caisson near the south bridge. So I'll fly over here and we'll just give some closer views of the work that is underway here on this trenching on the berm. New loading platform and that new door looks like it's mostly complete. They're finishing up some work on the ground, and they'll be putting some concrete around where they have that covered opening. So I'm going to bring the drone up. We'll get ready to fly over the highway, and we'll resume on this side. There's a few developments that I do want to show you here on the north end of the site on the west side of the main highway. First, you can see some of the trucks. Some of them have vehicles. Some of them are waiting for their vehicle pickup. That's going to be continuing all throughout today. Even though it's not a production day, there are many vehicles to be picked up to ship off to their new customers. Also, we can see resumed work here with the grade work. There's also some stakes being added now into that graded section, at least the brown part, and some additional dirt being delivered. So they're going to continue to work on this grade throughout this entire area. Again, what I've been told is this is going to be a new welcome center. I don't have the permits for it yet. I'm still looking to try to get those documents so that we can kind of verify that. But this is what this site looks like right now. They've been doing a lot of work to raise the grade up and get it level, and that is continuing. We also see some of the concrete debris here at the bottom of the screen, and that has not really changed in the last several weeks. But we do see how much more level this site has become, and with the size of the earthworking equipment, it gives you kind of an idea of the overall size of this graded section. So the structure that will be built here will be fairly large, and hopefully it will be that welcome center, and we can all get a chance to, from the public point of view, see what's inside at some point. All these materials are still waiting for their use around the site. Of course, the Evapco fan units and base units have been here for a long time, and I'm still waiting to find out where these are going to go. And perhaps it's going to be on that north construction area or somewhere else. So we'll just keep watching. And I'll bring the drone down here over this material staging yard. We see some more steel items, the containers, a bunch of other smaller parts on those racks on the right-hand side of the screen, and of course those two tents that have been sort of landmarks here for a couple of years. As I mentioned, no production today, so there's very little new car movement, but the outbound lot is reasonably full, and they'll be spending the weekend shipping these off, and then production will begin again on Monday, as has been the case for about the last year. Now, while I'm over the outbound lot, I did notice amongst all these vehicles near the Cybertrucks was this display. I think this is a mobile display unit for the solar roof. And as I get closer in, this is a nice in view showing some of those solar roof panels that have been installed and some additional panels on the other side of that roof. In this section, we see a good mix of the Cybertrucks. Some of them are all-wheel drives and Cyberbeast. And then we have that long line of trucks that are all the new long-range rear-wheel drive variants. And I'll bring the drone down and I'll fly along these just to give you a different view than what I showed you in my previous video. And we'll follow along just to get a good sense of the number of vehicles here at the outbound lot waiting for transportation. Since there's not a lot of production, I thought I would spend a little more time on the material staging yard here, looking at what's going on with the transformers, some of these items that will be for production that are being arranged and moved into the factory here on the bottom, the right-hand side and left-hand side of the screen. And as I bring the drone up, we'll see some of the steel items that are part of the construction process that's going on inside the factory to again add more mezzanines, vertical structures, and be prepared for even more of the production lines. And that is what a lot of this steel is being used for. We do see some work on that clearing in the upper right-hand side of the screen. Looks like another silt fence has been added, that low black kind of square fence section you see in the kind of upper left-hand side of the screen. So we'll just continue to monitor what's going on with that. And as I turn back towards the main factory, this is a nice view again of this entire west support facility with the material staging yards here at the bottom and left-hand side of the screens, the west warehouse on wheels with all of those trailers, the outbound lot, the end-of-line facility, and all of these roadways that have been serving the movement of vehicles and the trailers for about a year or so. And then next to the main highway, we see that new road, which was added recently. That's what is being used by the new vehicles to autonomously drive on this side of the highway and up to the end-of-line facility and just past the Cyber Tunnel, which you can see in the upper left-hand side of the screen. While I'm here, I wanted to take a closer look at the caissons. Specifically, I wanted to see if the tunnel liners that are being added into the caisson here and being pushed in to the tunnel have reached to the other caisson on the south side of the Colorado River. And here's a view in of what is going on here. You can see those hydraulic rams. They pushed another one of those tunnel segments in, and then that just continues to repeat. So to be able to find out if this has gone under the river and reached the other caisson, I'm going to bring the drone back up, and we're going to reposition the drone over to the south side of the Colorado River, and we'll take a look at that caisson to see if that has happened yet or if the tunnel operation is still proceeding in that direction. And also, while I'm doing the maneuvering, we can see a great view across the Colorado River of the new apartment complexes, new housing areas, and more of the work on caissons all the way down along this entire length of the roadway that connects into what we're seeing here at Giga-Texas. And this is all kind of a wastewater intercept system that is adding capacity per the permit because there's expected a lot more growth within the area, both at Giga-Texas and around. So as we get to this caisson, I'll zoom back in. We'll take a look down in, and what we'll see is that the tunnel boring machine, or at least a hole for a tunnel boring machine, is not present. And we'll just continue to watch this. It is interesting to see that the bottom ring is double wide, and I'm not sure if that was a late change or if that's just part of the normal construction of the caisson, but it is a little different that we're seeing from some of the other caisson that have been constructed around the site. So anyway, I'll keep watching that, and for now we'll just cross over the highway. We'll fly back to the north across the Colorado River, and kind of hugging the road on the left, I wanted to go over the power lines, bring the drone down, and show you the work that is underway here. We see some of the pile kind of augers on the left. We see the pipe extending under the road, which has had the horizontal drilling, and then that will extend all the way up through this section near the caisson and to this new excavation where we see some of the trench boxes on the right that'll be used for installation of more of the piping and possibly some concrete vaults at some point in the future. And it will be kind of interesting to see how all this ties together with that work that we saw along that west berm on the left-hand side of the screen with the trenches and the pipes that are being installed up just to the north of the flags. While we're here on the southwest side, I wanted to show you the continued work with framing in this sort of an entrance. And we can see the mounts for the glass, so I'm kind of curious to see how this is all going to come together. I think it will be an entrance of some sort, but I'm not sure in what format yet. So we'll watch that and see how it develops. As we get to this part of the extension where the kind of the interface between the old and the new comes together with that new glass line, this is a kind of a lower end view of what this is shaping up to be. And the crews are working on that last major section of where we expect to see those windows continue over to that opening by the temporary platform. And this is just a good overall view of how that interface is coming together. While I was here, I wanted to get a quick update on the installation of the solar panels along the bottom of the letters. And as you can see, crews are busy adding even more on top of the Unirack mounts, working their way from the south to the north. And we'll just keep watching and see how far that's going to go. And I know I get a lot of people asking about solar panels, and it's still, as far as I know, the plan to cover the entire roof with solar panels, but we'll have to see how that proceeds over the coming months and well into this year. Here's a nice view looking down at that cooling plant, some of the pipes on the ground, and how this looks from this point of view. 4 of the 6 fans are operating today, so that gives you at least maybe some idea of the operation of Cortex, and of course that temporary platform allowing for materials to be brought into that second floor. So that'll bring us to a close of the view here of Giga-Texas around the site for this week and the first flight in May of 2025. I really appreciate all your support, and I hope you enjoyed the discussion that we had at the intro and throughout the video. Have a great weekend and take care.